With great excitement, I introduce you to Northwood University, a truly exceptional institution in American higher education. Since 1959, this private, accredited university has been a vibrant bastion of free thought and enterprise, standing out among the thousands of other schools in the U.S. Known as America's Free Enterprise University, Northwood is dedicated to nurturing the next generation of leaders who drive global social and economic progress. At the heart of Northwood lies the Northwood idea, a philosophy that celebrates individual freedom, responsibility, and the importance of moral law and free enterprise. This entrepreneurial spirit is evident in that one-third of Northwood alumni own businesses. Northwood is more than an institution. It's a movement that empowers students to think critically and champion liberty. It is a rare gem in today's academic world. If you're passionate about supporting a university that values intellectual growth and free enterprise, or to learn more about its academic programs, visit northwood.edu. Hey everybody, this is Saad for the Saad Truth. Today I've got several firsts. This is the first time that I record the Saad Truth from an American university, Northwood University. Second first is that I've talked a lot about academia and about universities, but I've never had a senior academic administrator on my show, let alone a president of a major university. So today I'd like to introduce and say hello to President Kent MacDonald, president of Northwood University. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, great, God. It's great to be with you, and welcome to Northwood. Welcome to Midland. I feel special being the first one. Yeah.
I got to tell you, you find out about a place,
Yeah.
and I think we mentioned this off air yesterday, that there are all these beautiful places in the world
Yeah.
that short of the serendipity of life, you would have never heard of. So here we are, downtown Midland.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that a small town in, Michigan could have such a gorgeous downtown.
Yeah.
How many other places do we not know of that are as gorgeous as Midland?
Yeah, well, I've traveled the world like you, and we're blessed with wonderful places, wonderful people all around the world. I guess you and I are both the same age,
That's
so
right.
as we get
And we're both Canadian.
That's right, we are. I'm from Nova Scotia, eh? The world is great places, but I can tell you, look, growing up in Canada, we hear about Michigan. I was a big Red Wings fan, and you hear about Detroit, maybe a little bit about Ann Arbor. Um, but this is an incredible state. With their advertising tagline that says pure Michigan, it's real.
Right.
And we're right in the middle of it in an incredible little city, Midland, safe, wonderful people, and lucky to be here and really good to have you here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. This was my inaugural visit
Yeah, it
of
was.
many future visits to Midland and to Northwood University.
Yeah.
The way it started between us, I always tell people that, going into my emails is like a slot machine.
Right.
Sometimes it will hit black and you're happy, or vice versa, or red. And so 2 months ago, I'm in Southern California doing a bit of work, doing some shows, but also taking a family vacation. And here comes an email from a president of university that I'm ashamed to say I had not heard of, but
Sure.
now I'm glad that I've
Yeah.
heard of it. And here we are 2 months later. Unbelievable how life takes us in new trajectories.
Yeah, and again, as the older we get, we're blessed when we get to meet new people. So, number one, I'm so glad that you opened that email, because if you remember in your email, you said, I'm not
Answering anybody.
Right, yeah. So you failed on that one account, and so I'm really glad you did. So thanks for opening it. And number two is, I've been a fan. I was actually introduced to your work by our son Matthew.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he loved the parasitic mind. He just loved that book, and he talked about it with some of the elements that you raised. And bright kid. He's back in Ontario now, but he's a graduate of Northwood, did his MBA here, and that's where I first started reading. And so when I was watching some of your posts and learning, first of all, I connected with you in terms of philosophical
Sure.
and just the fact as a university professor, are we not to exist for the pursuit of truth?
Right.
Right? Fundamentally, that's why we exist. And so that was attractive to me. And so then I started to read some of the, be quite honest, some of the same reasons I decided, Marielle and I decided it was time to leave Canada. I love Canada. I'm, proud Canadian, proud to be from Nova Scotia. Um, but it was time.
Yeah.
And I just picked that up in what you were writing. And I said, he can ignore me or he can say no, or he could say yes.
What is that old expression from, I think, Michael Jordan? You never make all of the shots that you didn't try, or you miss all
Right.
the shots, whatever that expression
That's
is.
right.
So that's the adage that you went by.
That's right. And look, I'm maybe a non-traditional president. I'm unequivocal, though, in our pursuit of what we're doing here at Northwood, and that can only be achieved if we have great faculty. I mean, when you think back to your time at McGill or Cornell, you don't think of the president,
That's
right?
true.
You
That's true.
don't. You think of that professor who is in front of you, who touched you in a special way.
So true.
Yeah, and so one of my goals here at Northwood is how do we attract great faculty to be in front of our outstanding students, and then you blend in what we stand for as an institution, which is different. Then magical things happen, and already your time here at Northwood, I can feel it. I mean, I'm getting my phone. I've never had so many texts last night from our time
Oh, that's
together,
lovely.
and yeah, life is funny, and it's a joy to meet you and your wife, and to have you here at Northwood.
Likewise, it has been truly amazing experience, and not to just throw nice compliments at each other, but really, it's wonderful to walk around in a place that's so positive, where our values exactly align. So that it's been really refreshing for me,
Yeah.
and so I'm delighted to be here as a visiting professor and global ambassador of the Northwood idea.
Yeah.
Maybe we could talk a bit about what, many people don't have a clue what a president of a university typically does. So walk us on a daily routine. What is it that keeps you up? But also just generally, what are the things that you love about your job? Some of the things that you maybe like a bit less about your job.
Yeah.
Walk us through what it is to be a president.
Yeah. So, of course, it's contextual. Are you in a public or a private? In
Sure.
Canada, I was in a public, relied heavily on taxpayer funding. Here at Northwood, we're private. And so we have revenues in only in two ways, and that is through tuition and through generosity. And so my job here, I mean, in America, 1636 was the first school. Starts with an H over in Massachusetts. So at Harvard.
Humboldt College.
Humble, yeah, that's right. They very good.
I like that, huh?
They started this whole fundraising thing, and in Canada, the UK, others, we do it, but not to the degree that's expected here. It's happening more and more as
Right.
funding goes down, and we don't have to get into the those issues perhaps. But so fundraising is an important part here. But also the things that really keep me up at night is we've got a great academic vice president, Dr. Stayhauer,
She's fantastic.
Yeah, she's really good, and she knows that I get my fingers in the academic things because I have certain philosophies that as president I want to make sure we're on the same page, and we are. But she takes care of the academics and the finance admin. Great VP takes care of that thing. The thing that keeps me up at night is in 2024, I ask, are we doing the right things as an institution? I think we are. But then it's as a small private in the middle of rural Michigan, how do we compete? And it's difficult, with the funding and in this particular state, a desire to make tuition free, which I fundamentally disagree with, and so those competitive things actually make the job really fun. On top of that, I have my own Hippocratic oath, and that is do no harm. And what I mean by that at Northwood, this is a special place. We very publicly and proudly talk about being America's free enterprise university. And you as our global ambassador, the Northwood idea, we're also unapologetic about our commitment to what has made this the greatest democratic republic ever to exist. And remember, it evolved out of a revolution, right? So from that history and the founders and their vision of what they wanted America to be, I think Northwood represents that. Free enterprise, limited government, not no government, limited
Right.
government
Yes.
in our life, rule of law. Imagine rule of law. And the one that I think
So you mean I can't steal less than $950 and get away with it?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Now you're going to get me going.
Go for it. We have all the time in the world.
Yeah. And then the one that's most important to me as a dad of four children, as someone who's been in higher ed, just about at the same length of you, is I think we have a real responsibility to prepare these people for success in life. And life is not trigger warnings and safe spaces. It's about grit and resilience, and life is tough, and in my view, meritocracy and earned success. And so those things all wrapped up in what we call personal responsibility. That you show up, you work hard. That's why I love our students. People said, "Oh, Kent, you can't talk about that you love our students." I love our students because we attract a young person who's not going to be relying on government. The fact, Gad, that we have 1/3 of our graduates own or co-own
Yes.
their own company. It's an unbelievable statistic. So we're not the biggest, we're not the richest, but I think we're exactly what the country needs right now. Is they need more Northwood. We need more Northwood students, and just students who are ready to take on the world and have the confidence to do it. So when I talk about are we doing the right things, those are the things that it's wrapped up. The technical stuff, we're about to launch a new school. We're establishing the Center for Automotive and Mobility Studies. Those things are all exciting. How do we grow online? What countries do we want to do work in or not do work in? But those are more the technical things. The deeper things that keep me up are just this Hippocratic oath of do no harm to this incredible university. And quite frankly, I think we're all rowing in the right direction. I feel good.
Now, let me ask you this. I often receive the following question, usually in reference to Jordan Peterson and myself, in terms of what's in the water of Canada that you're producing such freedom defenders. Now we can add a third horseman of freedom called Kent MacDonald. Is there something uniquely in Canada that you need Canadians to be supporting all of the foundational values that the US was built on? What's going on there?
Sometimes that's the case, isn't it? I mean, you look at some who are the most innovative, entrepreneurial people, a lot of those people who legally come to this country. If you look at some of some of the most important CEOs in this country, they have something in common. Why are they all Indian descent?
Right.
And so sometimes you can't be a prophet in your own land. And you know that the story about a fish, and the old fish is swimming around the stone, runs into a couple of younger fish, and the old fish says to them, "How's the water, boys?" He swims off, and they look at each other and say, "What's water?" So sometimes you just don't know what you have, and it would be tragic for this country, for the world, to lose what has made this such a great country, and that is some of the fundamental things that we believe in. So where does it come from me and you and Dr. Peterson? I'm not sure, but there's more of us.
Yeah.
And I think, as you talk about a lot, Gad, we just have to elevate our voice in a strong and respectful way, and not be shy about it. And so that's why I love being at Northwood. We're proud of what we stand for. And the good news is this, that if you don't like free enterprise and limited government and these other things, there's 4,500 other colleges you can go to.
That's right. Exactly.
And there's a few of us here, our friends down at Hillsdale, and there's others. But there's not many. And so we think we have a really important role to play right now.
So just staying on the theme of Canada versus US, you've been a president at a Canadian university. You've been a president at an American university here at Northwood. I'm sure there are many similarities, but are there any distinct differences in your role as president that you've seen across the two countries?
So there is more of a reliance on fundraising here,
right?
As opposed to lobbying for more taxpayer money, not government money, taxpayer money. So that would be one. I think we have similarities philosophically of what we exist for, but I do see similarities from the work that I did in Nova Scotia and in Ottawa previous to that, and then what I see happening on many, let's not deny it, many other campuses in the country, particularly big publics. And I think, in my view, some have lost their way. That we forget what we're supposed to exist for. And there's arguments of internal biases in classrooms and faculty, and I personally believe them to be true.
Right.
And so those are similarities. I think in Canada, UK, Australia, places like that, there's going to be more of a desire to fundraise. So expect more Canadian university presidents will need to do that as
Right.
funding goes down, and they're loading up I mean, the counter offensive to that as a university is as funding per student goes down, we'll just fill the classes with 300 students and pretend great learning is going to take place there.
Right.
And look, I happen to be serving as a president now, but I'm fundamentally an educator, have been all my life, and we can't ignore what we know about learning, and so when you put that many students in a class to help underwrite the lower funding and help, I mean, we're going to go in a deep rabbit hole here, but to maintain faculty and departments that are no longer in high demand, but you know, tenured it's hard to get rid of those. So all that backfilling, those things exist, and so those are some of the similarities. Um, but there's in Canada, it's supposed to be decentralized as it is to the province. Here in the States, same thing.
Right.
America has a Secretary of Education, but doesn't have a lot of oversight in terms of what happens at a state level. So there's similarities, and America has a head start on us, of course, just because of the age. But I would say this, that Canada has outstanding, fantastic universities.
We do.
Absolutely.
Although I was actually, I can't remember who I was talking about this with, but the variance and the quality of university is lesser in Canada,
I agree. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you have 4,500 universities here, so you can have the absolute world leaders,
Yeah.
and you can have really schools that you would never want to even drive by.
That's right.
in the United States.
That's right.
Whereas in Canada, perhaps because of the fact that most universities are public,
Right.
there isn't that great variance. So any school that you go to, yeah, I mean, of course, University of Toronto and McGill might be better than other schools, but there isn't this gigantic drop in quality.
Yeah.
Do you agree with
I
that?
absolutely agree with that, and for all the reasons that you've just said.
Yeah.
If you look at Canada from coast to coast, there's great universities. They draw. I mean, they took you out of Cornell.
Right.
I'm a Penn grad, and but essentially they're pulling from the U15, you know, good
Right.
schools. So they're getting a good quality professor, first of
Right.
all. If you look at the differences in funding on a per pupil, there's variance between, you know, Alberta and others, but they're well funded.
Right.
In my view, so you have that quality control, and whereas in America, it's there is a wider variety, and so it behooves, you know, a student to ask
Right.
carefully, what do I want out of my experience?
And from the perspective of the students, in the United States, there's kind of a baptism by fire where you leave your home
Yeah.
to go away from the parents you know,
Yeah.
oversight
Yeah.
to go to school. Whereas I think many Canadian students will end up going to school that's closest to their home, right?
Mhm.
So
Most do.
right. So I mean, I did my undergrad and my MBA at McGill. Yes, it's McGill, Harvard, and North.
Yeah.
But it also so happened that I lived in Montreal.
Right.
So you don't have this idea put in your head that once you graduate high school, you're off somewhere. You just go to, so if you were in Waterloo, you'll go to University of Waterloo. If
Yeah.
you were in Toronto, you go to York or University of Toronto and so on.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that general difference in how American students versus Canadian students view the undergraduate experience?
Yeah, so on the Canadian side, absolutely,
Yeah.
and there's data there. It's, you know, a very, very high percent. It's 100 kilometers.
Exactly.
And for lots of good reasons,
Right.
Including that there's lots of good schools
Yeah,
around.
exactly.
Here, it seems to me it's more of a process. We'll start to get families coming when their child are sophomores or juniors
In
for
high school,
sure
yeah.
in high school, and they'll do this tour all across the country or the state. So I see a lot more of that, a lot more choice, perhaps contributes to it. But there's a sense. I mean, there's still a lot of students for fiscal reasons and other reasons they stay close to home, but there appears to be more mobility and desire to, I'm going to go down to North Carolina, or I'm going to come up here to Michigan.
Right.
And we benefit from from that at Northwood. We get students from across the country, including Canada as well.
Nice. A
Yeah.
couple of slightly more personal sort of life
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
Question one, had you not gone into academia, where would Kent MacDonald be today? Would he be a famous chef? Would he be a retired baseball player? Where would Kent MacDonald be if you weren't the president of
Come on,
Northwood University?
Canadian. Look, I'm the
Oh, hockey.
starting stamp
Okay.
beside. No, yeah, that's right. Uh, I was really. My dad was an optometrist. I was really interested in
Optometry.
no, actually medicine.
Medicine. Okay.
Yeah, I was. Sports medicine was of interest.
So
I was.
orthopedic stuff.
Yeah, more the orthopedic through
Okay.
my own personal experiences and experiences at university. That was of interest to me. Love the outdoors. So I mean, I would call myself complex because I find myself complex. There are times, I'll stand in front of 1,000 students and absolutely enjoy that, or talk about what's happening, what's the future of higher ed. Absolutely enjoy it. I also like going for a long walk, in the woods, spending time. So that's probably, being a fisherman off the
So
coast
you'd
of
be
Nova
like a
Scotia.
forest ranger.
Yeah, something like that, something in the mountain. We love the mountains, we love the ocean, something outdoors. I think there's a spiritual side of that appeals to me, and just the peacefulness
Right.
is important as well. And I mean, like you, we have to find those moments of respite
Yes, sir.
to kind of recharge and like your wife and my wife, we married up,
Boy, did we ever.
and we
I
like
don't know if I
spending.
pulled my
Yeah,
my trick.
same vibe. Yeah, with Mary Ellen, love spending time with her,
Yeah.
and our children, like you, we
Yeah.
like spending time. So, more
And you're a
opportunities.
huge book collector as I am.
I know, I know.
My goodness.
Yeah, and what are we gonna? I mean, Mary Ellen has made this rule: book in, book out. So here's our little secret, because nobody's watching this. I know.
I know.
Yeah,
Nobody. Zero.
but I have actually had books. I'm a big eBay book,
Collector.
yeah, collector, go and use bookstores, and so I have. Sorry, Mary Ellen, some of them sent to the office now.
Very
Yeah,
well done.
yeah, you've met Anne. She goes, oh gosh, another book. So book collecting and reading. I think it's part of age
Yeah.
that the older you get, the more you're humbled to realize how little
How
you
little
know.
you know. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I tell people. The
Yeah.
more I know, the more I realize that I know nothing.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about you, Gad, on shopping. I don't like to shop.
So me too.
Yeah,
And I teach consumer psychology.
yeah, and so Mary Ellen will just, if she has to get something, the first point of entry is the bookstore.
Right.
Drop me off there, and she can have the whole day shopping. So I'll be reading the philosophy section, world religion sections, politics, and I can just be absorbed in
Yeah,
in
it's
those
fantastic.
things. Yeah, it is fantastic.
Okay, one other personal question, and
Yeah.
then we wrap it up with anything that you'd
Sure.
like to promote, new projects coming
Yeah.
down the pipeline. One last question about personal issues.
Yeah.
So in one of the last chapters of my latest book on happiness, I talk about, try to live a life where when you look back at your life, you have as few regrets as possible.
Yeah.
And so the way I like to set that question up is I refer to the work of one of my former doctoral professors in psychology. His name is Thomas Gilovich, who pioneered the empirical study of the psychology of regret.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically, he argued, although he was certainly not the first to have that insight, that regret comes in two forms. There is regret due to actions and regrets due to inactions.
Mm-hmm.
Regret due to actions, I regret that I cheated on my wife and now I'm divorced.
Right.
So I did something and I regret it. Regret due to inaction, I went into orthopedics surgery because my dad is and my grandfather was, but in reality, I hate medicine. I always wanted to be an architect.
Yeah.
And so therefore I regret the road that I didn't take.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask people over the long term, what is their biggest, most haunting, looming regret? It's usually regret due to inaction.
Right.
So having set all that up, and if I were to ask you and put you on the spot right now, you're still a youngish man, so you still have much life to live. But if I ask you right now to tell me what is your current biggest looming regret, what would it be?
Wow, that's tough. I would. We have two grandchildren, and it's an absolute blessing. It's different than having our four children,
Right.
and it's caused me to reflect on fatherhood. And my mom and dad both passed away in the last couple of years,
Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you. And I remember, Gad, the last time I saw my dad, I left him in the hospital, and I heard him say I gave him a hug because every time I left, I was in Michigan, he was back in Nova Scotia. I wasn't sure if I'd see him again,
See,
and I heard him say something that I thought I understood. So I turned around, and this was after I hugged him and said, "Look, I'll see you soon," because we never say goodbye, and
right.
we always say "see you soon." And I said, "What was that, Dad?" And he said, "Was I a good father?"
Wow.
I mean, that makes me emotional just thinking about that.
Wow.
That experience now, having grandchildren, having children in Alberta and Ontario, Michigan, and they're spread out. And I don't know the exact statistic, but it's something along the lines that we spend 85% of our
I hate
time.
that stat.
I hate it too.
I know.
But by the time they're 18.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that would be the one. And Mary Ellen always warned me, as we get on the treadmill of life and I'm working hard because you think you want to do something great, you want to contribute to your family. And so the inaction, and I do lose sleep is, did I do enough? And I was their coach.
Right.
And,
So you were present, Dad.
I was present.
Yeah.
And when Adam was 12 and the youngest was maybe 4 or 5, Mary Ellen and I made a decision at that point. Look, they still got Christmas gifts, but we said, we're going to start to give these kids experiences more than things,
Right.
So we've climbed Kilimanjaro and we've rafted rivers in Costa Rica. Like, we've had a blessed life. So even with all of those things,
You're
I
still
think
questioning.
I think that when I say goodbye to our children, I will be thinking like my father, was I a good father? So, and I hope I was, but that's a regret, just the time that if 85% was with them, did I spend enough time?
What a
That,
lovely sentiment. That's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, thanks.
It'd be great to end it here, but I want to end it on some sort of promotional note in terms of some of the things that are coming down the pipeline. Again, to remind people, you are the president of Northwood University. What are some projects that maybe you haven't yet had the opportunity to publicize that you could use this forum to promote? Take it away.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So Northwood is it's a unique place, and our commitment to free enterprise makes its way through everything that we're doing. So we're going to be announcing a new school. It's going to be technology related, but it's going to be technology and enterprise related. How do you harness the amazing tools that we have available to advance industry, to advance entrepreneurship, to make our work more efficient? So that will be coming forward in the next several months. Dr. Stehauer is leading that with a group of faculty, and they're doing great work. Another one is, for over 6 decades now, Northwood has been known as preparing individuals to lead in the automotive industry. So we say automotive mobility, the aftermarket. And so in just a few weeks at our International Auto Show, which is the largest outdoor auto show in the country, all run by students, and
Right.
I mean, just my belief in experiential learning. Let them do it.
Right.
And they're a wonderful success. So at our auto show, we're going to go deeper. We've done a soft launch, but on something called CAMS, the Center for Automotive and Mobility Studies. And we are doing an even deeper commitment to make sure that this incredibly dynamic, multi-billion dollar automotive and mobility space is going to have leaders of the future. And so those are two really big ones for us that we're very proud of. And I like to tell moms and dads, wherever their child goes, and I like to tell future students, wherever you choose, it's the right choice. It's the experience that you want.
Sure.
But if a student believes in free enterprise, if they believe in that they have the ability to lead and launch a new company, this is just a remarkable place, and everybody's welcome at Northwood. I'm extremely proud of that we speak freely. We can actually have a discussion. We talk about civility in higher education, but we're not very civil a lot of times. And so how do we create that environment where you can have these uncomfortable discussions, then say, hey, friend, let's go have lunch now. So that's another theme that continuing to focus on not just the biggest school. We don't want that. We want to find just the right students at Northwood, and it's a special place. And having you part of it, Gad, is really a blessing for us.
Thank
So
you so much.
yeah, you're
So
welcome.
two quick thank yous. First, thank you for being the first president of a university to grace the Sad Truth.
Yeah,
Number two, thank you for giving me the opportunity to contribute to your wonderful institution.
you're welcome.
So I really appreciate it. It's such a pleasure having you on the show. Come back anytime you'd like. Thank you so much, President MacDonald.
Thank you, Gad.
Cheers.
Cheers.